Hey, Jimmy here with the channel Drummer Every Day, and this is a little bit of a departure from what I've previously done, but of course, having a music channel myself, I get a lot of music suggestions, and one of the things the other day was a Rick Beato where he expounded on somebody's, short that showed I Was Made for Loving You versus Prisoner, and he made the case that it's simply stolen content. So I'm going to kind of explore that a little bit. I'm going to share my perspective on it. I'm going to make the case that it may be stolen content, it may not be, and that it's really kind of irrelevant is when we really look at how music and the passing down of musical knowledge through literally centuries has worked functionally, but all of a sudden it's a problem, in the last 5 years or the last 30 years even. And then I'm finally going to share why. Actually, I'm going to share right now why I really don't care. And I'm actually glad if Miley Cyrus and Dua Lipa did steal that song. Because if they stole that song, then that's why the other day I was listening to a Rick Beato, video on YouTube. And it has this really memorable lick in it. And it's like, I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me. And that was my takeaway from that whole video. It was that line, that lyric, those notes. And I really liked it. And the thing is, I can't remember the last time I heard that song. I don't know that I've heard it on the radio in years necessarily ever. But I liked the song, especially that part of it, and I don't even know the whole song because I didn't listen to other parts of it, but I really liked that part. And that is something that Miley Cyrus and Dua Lipa did for me, for the world, and for Kiss even, as far as having a continuation of their musical content and their musical ability and talent, because I wouldn't have known about that song if it wasn't for this whole series of events that included potentially their song being stolen. All right. Really quickly, let's go into an aside. Copyright law, new thing, right? Fairly new thing. And it's really questionable whether it actually protects the artist. And to me, that's what matters, right? The idea behind copyright law existing and being important is that it's supposedly going to protect the artist. But is that what it always does? Like, there's a relatively famous case where John Fogerty was sued for sounding too much like himself. How did that happen? Well, he didn't own the rights to his own music. The record company owned the rights. So when he created new music later, they said that sounds too much like the music we own the rights to. You can't do that. So that's kind of a really glaring case where it did not protect the artist. So although I love the concept of the artists themselves being protected, I think that it's really problematic, and that the artists it's least likely to protect are the small-time artists, right, who don't even have a record label. The ones who are playing local gigs and then all of a sudden they're getting in legal trouble because they did a cover of some famous song. Like, come on, I'm just playing at a bar, or I'm playing at a restaurant for a small audience. I'm just, I'm getting paid $60 a night and a free burger, and all of a sudden I'm in legal trouble with this multi-million-dollar company because it's probably not the artists themselves that cares, right? Like, for example, I'm trying to think of an artist I like who isn't dead. Like, obviously, if the artist is dead, if I'm playing a Jimi Hendrix cover, Jimi Hendrix is not going to benefit whatsoever from the record company coming after me over that. But even if I'm playing, an Adele cover, does Adele care? Probably not. If I'm getting sued for it, it's probably going to be the record company, not Adele. And it might not even be able to be her because maybe her music is owned by the record company. I don't know. So that's a point of major concern for me, that maybe we've got the whole legality around copyright and what it does and what it should be doing completely backwards. It may not be helping musicians, and if it is helping any musicians, it's helping the ones who are really famous, really rich, and honestly can probably afford to have their songs covered. Um, and music is supposed to be about like people being able to have a form of expression, a form of artistry that they can maybe take a cover, take somebody else's work and make it their own, or at least do a rendition of it that is meaningful to them, meaningful to their audience, and that should be okay. Right? When you put this legality around it, it kind of kills the beauty and the freedom of art, which is what art is all about in the first place. And I'll be the first to say an artist deserves to make a living by performing their art. And I'm all for anything that genuinely protects an artist's ability to make a living and be protected from people taking away from what they have created and their ability to make a living through what they have created. But I just don't think that copyright law really does that. Besides that, like if you've ever watched a documentary, a really good documentary about the blues, which is, America's music, it's kind of, blues and jazz are the American genres of music that grew up in America, and they have roots outside of America, but they really grew up in America. And rock and roll and a lot of other things that are pretty rooted in that American tradition. Well, it's well known that blues artists and a lot of other, folk artists of any kind copied licks directly from each other. Like that was the whole point of why they'd even go listen, why a person would even go listen. An aspiring musician would listen to another established musician so that they could, quote, steal their licks, steal their music, steal their ideas, steal the things that made them enjoyable to listen to. And then they'd add to it. And there's always an element of adding to the things you're stealing. But, and I'm saying the word stealing because that's the word that's been used, that's the accusation, but I question whether it's really stealing, right? It is learning. We copy in order to learn. When you're learning the ABCs, you don't do it by trying to invent a new language, invent something that hasn't been done before. You do it by writing out exactly those letters the way that they've been written before. And then once you've established those basics, and even when you're learning to read and write, you're basically copying. But once you get good at that, you can use the language to say something that's never been said before, or to say it in a unique way or a way that is special to you. But so much of the foundation comes directly from copying. And I don't know why it would be any different with something that is primarily creative, because really good use of the English language is creative. It is an art. Where exactly the line blurs from science to art, from studies, from academia into actual creative expression, there's overlap there. And so I think, we should be able to understand from almost everything we do. When you're learning how to do a sport, how to walk, how to run, all those things, you're just copying the movements of everyone who's come before. But then once you're a professional athlete, you might try to take it a little bit beyond what anyone has ever done before. So there's that. And then this is the part that I was kind of excited about and that I was actually thinking about. And as I was driving today, I was testing out trying to figure out whether I actually understood what this line is, because this line is really catchy. I'm gonna try to go back to it. I don't have perfect pitch. I don't know if I'll hit the pitch. And it's really strange to jump from talking to singing, but I was made for loving you, baby. right? That's basically it. And then I started to count that out. And I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, I forgot how to count music. 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 3 is the basic rhythm. There's a couple spots where it might be a little bit different because, just because that's what happens as you try to work words into a rhythm. You try to vary things a little bit, but it's basically that. And then I was like, but what are the notes there? And I haven't, tried to reverse engineer music since I was in college in an oral harmony class, and that was like 16 years ago. But do, re, mi. No, it's a minor. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, so, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, sol, so, fa. So basically, sorry, terrible, but basically what I'm getting at is all that does is walk up and down the minor scale from do up to sol, back down to do, back up again. That drops one step at the end for the fa. Sorry, I did not nail that, but I think you understand what I'm getting at. This is like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's imagine you're in 6th grade band, 6th grade orchestra. You're learning an instrument for the first time. You're like 2 months in, and maybe that's a little bit unrealistic because a lot of programs probably don't introduce the minor scale, but the minor scale is just the major scale with a third that's been lowered by half a step. All right, super basic. We're in minor, not major. It's not really different. It's super different, but the difference is one note that's been changed by half a step. That's the only difference. And yes, it creates an entirely different feel for the music, but that's the only difference. And that's kind of part of what I'm getting at, is that when you're creating music, you're using an extremely limited palette, and even the tiniest change can be incredibly significant. And we should keep that in mind when we're thinking that an artist copied another artist. Well, did they copy them, or are there tiny differences? Because tiny differences are important. A tiny difference is all there is between the major and the minor scale. But let's go back to our scenario. You're learning your instrument and your band director's like, okay, play the minor scale. And you're like, do, sorry, let me find it. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. And, the band director's trying to get you to go up and down it, but you're like, do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, fa, sol. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, so, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, sol, so, fa. Right, and your band director's like, no, just play it straight. Just do, re, mi, fa, sol. But, you want to mess around with it a little bit. That is literally all that is. I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me. Right? It's just going up the minor scale to the so, and then coming back down, going back up. That's literally all it is. It's just walking up and down the scale. And then there's like a couple eighth notes in there. But really all that is varying. That's all it is saying, I want to do something a little bit more interesting than just quarter notes up and down. So I'm going to throw in one quarter note that's a little longer and then one that's a little shorter, because that's all the dotted quarter followed by an eighth is. It's just, I wanted one to be a little longer, one to be a little shorter, so they weren't all exactly the same. I wanted to be a little bit more interesting. So now we've realized that all Kiss did was plagiarize the minor scale and put words to it. That's all they did. And so are we going to accuse Kiss of stealing from whoever came up with the minor scale, which is just a mode of the major scale? It's just the major scale, but instead of starting on 1, you start on 6, right? And so in some countries they would teach that as starting on la. La ti do re mi re do ti do re mi re. Right? There's disagreement over how to teach that. In most American schools, you move the do, but that doesn't represent accurately what the minor scale really is, because the minor scale is really just the major scale, but you start on 6 and go to 6 and back down. So it's a mode. If you don't know all that theory, that's fine. I'm stumbling over it a little bit myself, seeing as it's been 16 years. And I may not have explained it the way that a professional music educator at the college level would have. But the point is, did Kiss just steal a very, very basic thing that goes back to medieval times, but they made it sound, 80s grunge or whatever exactly Kiss is? We're not going to accuse them of that, right? But that's kind of what it is. And then and that's also like, what if I'd never ever heard Kiss do that? The first time that I was asked to play a minor scale and I got a little bit bored and I wanted to mess around and screw around in band class, I might have done that same kind of thing. Da 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 da. You know, I might have come up with that exact same lick just because I was like, everyone else in band is going, this is boring. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. And I'm like, do, re, mi, fa, sol. Hey, this is actually kind of cool. This grooves, right? That is something that literally anyone could come up with, and maybe has come up with, completely independently of hearing Kiss do it. So did Dua Lipa or Miley Cyrus hear Kiss and then make their own song? Probably, because I think enough of the rest of the song is similar, like same key, same tempo. You can hear that they literally fit over each other. Like probably they did hear the song and they did use that as the basis for what they did. But it's also feasible or plausible that they were just kind of humming along one day, and it was like, yeah, cool. I could make something out of that, right? So, 18 minutes into this video, all of my videos are unscripted, they're uncut, they're unedited. Rick Beato does a much better job than I do of making videos, or at least he's more intentional. He has more time on his hands. Not sure. Very, very, very talented musician, very talented educator. I love listening to him talk. I mean, I did make this about Rick Beato in the beginning, so I'm going to bring it back there. I love listening to him talk about things he likes, things he's passionate about. I don't enjoy hearing anybody down talk any musician. You don't like him, don't listen to him. Right? Comes on the radio, change the channel. I don't care. But I think we all have to realize that supposedly every new pop is worse than the pop that came before it in the previous generation or generations, right? Everybody thinks that the pop from their childhood is better than the pop from kids these days' childhood. And the fact is, in my opinion, there's good music, there's catchy music, and there's mediocre music, and there's fads, and there's the music that catches your attention for a very, very short time, but then you're over it, and then there's stuff that has enduring value in from every generation. And yes, there have been some really big creative explosions throughout history and in different ways and in different subcultures. There's a really great, at least I'm sure more than one really great video about those specific topics on YouTube that were really eye-opening to me, and just about kind of things I already knew, but they made it really poignant and real by pointing out the top song from like 1962. And it's some song you've never heard of, right? But at that day in 1962, it was the biggest thing. And so when we're comparing today's biggest thing to the great music from 1962, it's actually a false comparison, because the enduring, not in quotes, the actual enduring music from 1962 is not what was, the top of the pop charts, most likely at that time. So when we're comparing today's top of the pop charts to the enduring music from a different day, it's a false comparison. So that's really fascinating. But I think the fact is that you know, when we are young, whatever is available to us at that time is super special, not because it's special, but because being young is special. And therefore, anything that is associated with it is special. And we're receptive in a different way when we are young, and we internalize things and remember things, and things hit with a certain importance and poignance when we are young. And, therefore we have this nostalgic feeling about it, and a feeling that nothing else could ever come close, not because it's that much better, but because we were in this place mentally and emotionally at the time that it came out. So that's my take on all that. As far as actual musical element of it goes, I just want to make the point, every musician has been stealing from prior musicians all throughout history. And thank goodness, because in my opinion, as much as I, do have that special place for the music that I was super into when I was young, I would hate for it to be the only music that would ever existed. I would definitely hate for there never to be something new. There's been whole times in my life where I was just, all I wanted was to hear something new and different. And I remember when Kiss Me More by Doja Cat, and I'm in my cabin with a vintage record player stereo from like 1960s. I'm turning the channels, turning the dial. I pick up a station and I hear, "Kiss me more, we're so young, boy. Do 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 do. Whoa." And I never heard anything that sounded quite like that. And it was something totally new. And I really couldn't care less. So I'm getting a little bit off topic here. My bad. Like I said, no notes. I couldn't care less. I'm just addressing the general negativity that is sometimes out there about new pop music. Couldn't care less who made it. Couldn't care less what most of the lyrics were, which I did not find out until much later, looking them up. Couldn't care less whether it was new, old, did not matter to me. It was just something that was different, that I liked, and it struck me at an emotional level. And I'm rambling, and I'm super glad that exists, and that the pop artists of today don't give a flying darn about what some old people think of their music in comparison to other music. I'm just glad that that, first of all, it's not all about me, right? I'm 30 some years old. Rick Beato is, I don't know, 50s, 60s. It's not all about us. It's not all about our perspective. There are young people out there loving the new music that is coming out the same way that we got to love the music that was out or coming out when we were young. So can we just let people have that and enjoy that? And every once in a while there's something in there that we could like if we're not, all overly critical of it, because right, that's the difference. That's why we liked the pop music that we liked when we were young, so we weren't criticizing it, we were listening to it. We were enjoying it. We were relating to it. We were assigning some sort of positive value to it. And I think that when I put aside like my musical ego and prejudice, because it's not even ego, because it's not that the stuff I grew up on is better than the pop today. Dua Lipa's stuff, a bunch of electronic drums, right? I have a drumming channel. I shouldn't like electronic drums in theory. I don't care. I love the sound of some of it. I really don't care if it's electronic or not. I don't think it's less real. Somebody really came up with that drum track. They used a different process. Why should I care? If I like the sound of it, if I like the feeling that it evokes, if I like something about it, who cares? So, I think that when we put aside our musical prejudices and just let ourselves listen and enjoy, I personally enjoy a lot of today's pop. And I still enjoy classic rock and a bunch of other things too. So, thanks for watching this video. If you survived to the very end here, you are helping me get video views and hours, and that is helping me with the goals of one of the goals of my channel. One of the other goals of my channel is to put valuable content out there. Apparently, if you watch this whole thing, you must have found some value in it. So I hope I gave you something interesting to think about. Either way, thanks for watching.